New York's got an infestation problem.
If you spend any time in New York City, there is no doubt you see rats. I see one on the subway probably almost every single day.
She showed us holes in the walls of her kitchen.
I hear the rats chewing through the walls.
We've had rats the size of Crocs.
And you look right here, they come out of here and they go right back out here.
Flood rat may soon steal your viral video fame.
I've managed to find one of the few rat-proof apartments in New York City.
I work in the borough all the time. The rats are horrible. They're all over the place. They're literally down through the subways.
Oh,
it's
man.
disgusting. I try not even eating.
And bed bugs, those are back too.
The city of New York has ranked second on Orkin's top 50 bed bugs city list. The high turnaround at hotels and apartments add to the bed bug burden.
But before we see this infestation-resistant apartment, it's important to understand why New York City is having such crazy pest problems at the moment, as well as what you can do to make sure you avoid them and keep them out of your apartment to begin with. And first, we've got to talk about rats because the city's rat population has increased by 800% over the last 65 years, and this is a problem that just keeps growing and growing. This right here is a rat bait station, and based on the news reports, those aren't doing a darn thing to get rid of these critters.
I saw a rat climbing up the side of the building. You can see it out the window.
I come out when I have the pizza and I hit him with the cane and then starts screaming.
This isn't sensational reporting either. Rats are everywhere. One time I was sitting in a subway platform wearing flip-flops and I felt something crawl over my foot. It was a rat. Haven't worn flip-flops since.
A hole so big in her closet, you can see the basement in her closet.
Yeah, so then they had rats and vermin coming up there.
And as you can imagine, if rats have taken over the streets, which they have, it's only logical that they're gonna need a place to live, and that's why they're taking over some apartment buildings. And if that wasn't bad enough, a 2015 study by Columbia University found that rats carry fleas, lice, and mites, and cause various diseases, like typhus and spotted fever. Now, your typical New York City rat is the brown rat, aka the Norway rat. They weigh about 12 ounces, and they can squeeze through gaps just 1 inch wide. And that's because their skulls aren't solid like ours. They can like elongate them and adjust them. It's creepy. They can also jump 4 feet horizontally, and they can survive a 40-foot drop, just like Spider-Man, which makes them pretty much perfect for living in New York City. A decaying urban environment is exactly what they could wish for. They're happily living underneath our feet. Plus, we feed them with our garbage. Why is there like food just sitting out here on the sidewalk? Those are someone's leftover French fries. That was probably a burger. And there are so many ways for them to come out from beneath the ground and go back in. But most of the time, they just walk down the stairs into the subway like you or I would.
It didn't take long. We found at least 4 active rat burrows.
And you look right here, they come out of here and they go right back out here.
Experts estimate that there are over 3 million rats living in New York City, and the reason we're using strange machines to try and tackle the problem is because studies like this one show that the rats here in New York City are actually resistant to the types of poison used to control them. Any creature that can eat poison and live is going to be hard to get rid of, and that's why you better hope they're not in your apartment building. Isn't this cool? We got ourselves a little roof deck here. That's the first reason this place is gonna have fewer problems than others is because we're on the top floor. And this is a 3-bedroom apartment. It might not be, you know, super high tech, but it's got laundry, vented machines, and the rooms are sunny. Pests don't like light shining upon them. And believe it or not, at $53.95, this 3-bedroom is considered affordable. And even though it's not very big and everything kind of fits together like a Tetris puzzle, it's maintained in a way that gives me confidence that moving in would not be a terrible decision. And the first reason for that is the building's garbage is stored in a clean part of the building outside, not in the building itself. The hallways here are super clean, well maintained, and there's only 2 apartments on every floor, so it's not massive with tons of gross neighbors. And the super's actually out here taking care of it right now. If you don't see a person taking care of the building, it could be that no one takes care of the building. And the main advantage of being so high up is that rats and bedbugs have to fight gravity to a greater extent than any of your neighbor's apartments to get to your apartment. So first, we've got the clean building, which is your #1 layer of defense. And the second line of defense you have is that the landlord has done specific things to this apartment that will help keep it pest-free. Look at how well this door seals. Absolutely nothing can get in here, and this leads to the outside of the building. And that's why we're here, to snoop around and see if we find any pests, so that you'll be able to tell which apartments in the city are likely to have problems and which ones aren't. But the hunt for problems actually starts outside of the building, not inside. Like that, right there. These are the waste bins in front of a building down the street, and these are the first sign of potential trouble. Look at that gap, that's an inch right there. And we have a hole. Now this building's very clean, but something like that is definitely a rat magnet. There's no way around it. And look at this. There are 25,000 restaurants in New York City, all of which need somewhere to store their trash. And in addition to restaurants, you've also got 7.8 million apartments. One restaurant owner I spoke to said that outdoor dining sheds, apparently these have rats living in them right underneath where people are eating. There's probably something in there. I am not sticking my fingers in that hole. This isn't an outdoor dining shed. Look at that. Running a little restaurant like that, it's tough, but human activity, it contributes to the rat problem. And most apartments, most businesses, most don't do a great job like this on their trash. This is what everyone should be doing. This has no holes or gaps. There's even wire filling in some of the gaps. And these are locked bins, which means strangers from the street can't just throw garbage inside these. Plus, I don't think rats can pick locks. These guys are doing a nice job. It's clean down there. And things are gonna be very different in these apartments than they are at the apartments that had all that garbage in front of them, where there was that restaurant. It looked like a dump. And that's part of the problem, because even if your building is clean, your neighbors could be ruining it for everybody. This needs to be a team effort, and this person, they're not pulling weight. And these New York City rats, they only need 28 grams of water and food a day to survive. There's a lot of restaurants here, so I'm sure they'll find it. And there's lots of water to drink because New York's concrete jungle, and we have puddles everywhere. And these little restaurants, at the end of the day, they are full of whatever their customers didn't finish eating. These trash cans are probably full of pizza crusts. And look at this disaster over here. We've got a couch, we've got furniture, we got a trash bag right there. That little trash can, there's no way it's gonna contain all this waste. It's a disaster.
It's a disaster. It's really sad.
Does it happen like this all the time?
It's been happening since the pandemic. No one cares.
Do you think that's why we have so many rats?
I think it's a lot of the why. Yeah, there's garbage, there's food, trash. It's a mess. It's a horrible mess.
That gentleman was telling me that problems like this spill over into the children's playground. And where do you think the rats are living if this is their food source? And to make matters worse, even if restaurants want to containerize their garbage, sometimes they just have way too much. And the recent expansions with outdoor dining have doubled the capacity of a lot of places, which means restaurants are creating more waste than they ever have before. And if they end up bagging it up and those bags rip open, oh man. Let's think about it. And think about if you want to rent an apartment above a restaurant, make sure that restaurant is clean. This building right here probably has issues. Look at how the trash bins are outside. These don't have lids that fold down correctly. And this is a busy street. I'm sure random folks just throw stuff in here. That's what you want to be on the lookout for. And a lot of buildings like this typically have an inside area where more trash is kept. And if the outside of the building has issues, you can bet the inside's got them too.
This is where the rat holes are located. She showed us holes in the walls of her kitchen. I hear the rats chewing through the walls all the time.
Okay, that seems like a pretty solid wall. Her rats were coming in through a wall behind the stove. And this area of the kitchen is actually all granite, so pretty well maintained. And that is some resilient construction. Speaking of resilient, look at these little windows. There's a nice, solid seal all the way around. These face a shaftway, and if there were gaps or something in that, or if this brick were in bad shape, I'd be worried, but I'm not. The front door for the apartment, there's actually a small gap here, but that's less than an inch. And if you wanted, you could put like a barrier or something here. But we're on the apartment's top floor and there's no way a rat's gonna squeeze through that. That outlet has a perfect seal around it. Everything under the kitchen sink looks good. No weird gaps or anything around the pipes. The heater has this little ring sealer around it so that when it goes into the floor, there's no gap. And this I really like. There's no gap between where the floor meets the wall. This is an area where bugs could sneak in. Bed bugs. Not here though, look, it's nice all the way around. You also don't have any gaps in the floorboards. And although the bathroom here is super tiny, there's really nothing that's going wrong in here. Look at the sink. It's perfectly sealed in the corners. There's no gaps. That's awesome. No gaps in the tile. And the sink back here, no gaps either. Look at this shower. Like these little double sliding glass doors. You can come in here and now you're on an adventure to Mars. Or you're in one of the Alien movies. But not every apartment's like this, and things are so bad out on the street that the city has a new plan that they think is gonna save us from the rats.
Trash bags, they're everywhere. They're across the city and you see them every single day. And officials say that leaky trash bags are basically a buffet for the rodents.
So the city has a new plan to combat rat-related trash problems. And it's gonna mandate containerizing garbage, and it's gonna apply to buildings with 9 or fewer units. And obviously it's long overdue, look at this. And next March, it's also gonna include restaurants. And you're probably wondering why larger buildings like this that produce most of the uncontrolled waste that we see aren't included in this plan. My guess is containerizing garbage in a building that is this massive, you'd probably have so many containers that this little sidewalk here is completely unusable, which would mean that unless the city is gonna start emptying the trash more often, that might not be an immediate option. And most of the buildings in New York are bigger than 9 units, which makes me wonder how effective is this plan even gonna be immediately when it kicks in? If it's not something that everyone's doing, the rats are just gonna go over here because they can't go over here.
The uniform design of the new bins means that they can be tipped mechanically into the back of collection trucks. And DSNY will retrofit or replace hundreds of trucks to move past the days of throwing the bags by hand.
We're talking standardized waste management across the city. It's definitely a step in the right direction. So that building has more than 9 units. This building doesn't, so it would have to containerize its trash. This one would not have to do that. This one would have to, and these 3 right here would not have to containerize their waste. So New York kind of has a plan to deal with the rats, sort of. But what about bed bugs? They're making a comeback too.
The city of New York is ranked 2nd on Orkin's top 50 bed bugs city list, only outbugged by Chicago, which ranked number 1 for the 3rd year in a row.
Okay, good news. I don't see any bugs in here. They're small, but you'll be able to see them inside closets if they're in here. Now, bed bugs are what I would consider to be my absolute worst fear to ever have in any apartment ever. And in other apartments I've been to, corners that aren't sealed properly are pretty much where you'll find them. Bed bugs are these wingless beetle-type insects, and because they're very flat, imagine that if something's not sealed correctly, they could sneak behind it like an outlet cover or a windowsill. A poorly sealing window, that's just a recipe for total disaster. The good news is that they can't jump and they can't fly, but the bad news is that they're all over the place. And if you're traveling or something,
A viral bed bug outbreak in Paris buzzed on social media, but as we approach the holiday season, travel could be an open invitation to those unwanted tiny pesty guests.
Makes perfect sense. You move into a hotel, you throw your stuff on the floor, stuff crawls into it, and then you bring them back to your apartment. And let's say you find a gorgeous looking used couch, you bring it in off the street, you throw it over there. That was probably a terrible idea. Don't do that. Definitely not here in New York City. And they can travel between apartments, but there's a couple things about this one that I like. First of all, there's a little bit of a ledge here so that things that are on the floor have to climb up to get in, and there's only one other apartment on this level. And to be honest with you, they seem like they're pretty clean. If they had a bunch of sneakers and garbage bags out in front of their place, I would be worried. I actually lived in an apartment once where my neighbor across the hall ended up getting bed bugs. I was all afraid, thinking that I was gonna end up getting them, but they treated her apartment, her problem went away, and I never caught it. So I'm not sure that's the greatest risk that you're gonna have. The bigger problem is that they may have come into your apartment from the last renter, or perhaps the bugs were in your moving van. Did you ever think of that? Maybe the movers don't exterminate. And the big question is, will New York City ever defeat the rats and the bed bugs? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you in the next video.